Welcome back. I hope you had a good season so far. I want to talk about a couple changes I made after spending the last 2 weeks in this saddle. Let's take a look. So first I wanted to talk about some things I did not like over the 2 weeks where I used this at least once a day. I had built this harness years ago, and I had incorporated it into the saddle for safety concerns, but it never did bear my weight, and it just caused some discomfort with the straps, the leg straps. So I removed it, and in its place I had this new version of my saddle, this paracord netting saddle, and I added another one. So I have what would be like a 2-panel saddle, but they're much larger, so ends up being a bit of a hammock, but we'll get into that. I think 40 feet was too long for me. I could get to the ground in most places with a single stage repel, is what I'm calling it, where you just you take your lower tether loose and either take it off the tree, or you just allow it to follow you down the tree to catch you in case something should go wrong with the upper tether. But what seemed to happen was, because it's bound on the tree and there's a certain amount of spin either in the rope or the hitches, puts a twist into the rope, and I would have the as I got down to the bottom, what was remained of the rope that did not pass through the hitch, the friction hitch I repel on, would start to kink up and spin. So I made another video, at least one, where I talked about a multi-stage repel, where I would have this is my upper tether. My upper tether would be on the tree. I would attach my pull down to the upper tether, and then drop the other end of the pull down with the pack or whatnot. And that 40 feet of rope, not only did it spin like that, but that, and coming down a whole 25 or so feet with 25 feet of paracord as it's getting dark, and pulling that down becomes a mess with all the saplings around. So I know people don't want to hear it, but rappelling is not as good as walking back down with the 2-tether. It's just not. It's just all together. Now I'm going to try this multi-stage rappel to where I would come halfway down or rappel off the upper tether. It puts me at, say, 12 foot of rope above and just 12 foot of pull down, and I would transfer my weight to the lower tether, get the weight off the upper, pull it down, take it off the tree, drop it to the ground, and then, that's rappelling. Originally would be rappelling down this hitch, and then I would take that down, drop it, and since this is already on the tree and my weight is on it, now I just rappel down this hitch. And so the rope that was going through this way, this rappel section here, starts coming back through this way. And I think that solves a bunch of problems all at once. I need less of this. I have less to pull down from each side. Even if I had to do it another time, it's not that big of a deal. And whatever twist I put in the rope coming down the upper, I would be taking that out, going down on the lower. And I realize I'm going to have to do a video on that so people can see. It's not always easy for everyone to visualize. People are different types of learners. But that being able to take that twist. The other thing I had, and I already untied this, and I did like a preload. I'm not sure if the climbers use the same terminology. I really haven't looked into it. But what was happening is I was always rappelling down from the upper down this rope, and it would take this sheath and it milked it down, and it milked it down. So as I got lower on the rope, my rappel became harder and harder and harder, to the point where I would pretty much lock up until I loosened it up and started again. So what I did was I cut my 10 foot off, untied the lower, everything on the lower here. I took all this off, and I kept pulling the sheath down until all the excess was past the core. I put this, it's all wrapped in here now, but I put a constrictor knot to lock them together here, melted the end, and then wrap the rest of this cord. And I might trim it later, but right now it gives a good grip. So right now I'm going to leave that. But that makes brings the rope back to the same diameter from end to end. And I think aside from the twisting, it's the stacking of the sheath down towards the other end is a problem. So if I go from one end, then I go down the other end, it's going to keep any place that the sheath might get bunched up. It's going to keep that in the middle of the rope, and should get rid of that problem. Taking 10 feet out of this rappel section puts this for me as now it's just these two. The two tethers, even though they're integral, those go over my shoulder, and then I get this wraps around my waist one time. It carries much less bulky. It feels much lighter. I weighed the whole thing, including this carabiner, which I use to manage the rappel section of the rope. It's really, I don't use it for weight bearing, so it could be any kind of carabiner. And I might ultimately get rid of it, but I use it to just hold this end around my waist. So when I get where I'm going, I'll take it off. I'll drop the rappel off, and then maybe hook this to my saddle behind me so it doesn't get underfoot. So it wraps halfway around my back, and I use it for that. So that's that. We say this this will be much shorter, and the way I'll use it from now on is I'll attach the one end to the upper and the other end to the to this loop on the lower here, somewhere on here. And so for the rappel, for coming down, and it'll be a lot less to wind up. So that's that. And get into the stirrups. I put the heat shrink tubing back on. Neither one is attached. I have like an inner and outer here, so 2 feet of each. And for most trees that I end up climbing, I only need the 2 feet. I don't need a whole 4 feet or even 3. I keep that slit about right here, so this bypass link can open up. There's a little room here to open up like that. So that's that part. I shortened up these little handle lanyard, and I changed the style here. I'm going to see how that. I haven't used this like this yet, but it doesn't take a lot of to grip it to pull. What happens is on the upper, if you make this too long, it'll hang down, and you move the lower tether up, and it ends up on top of here, and you go to move the upper up, and it's stuck. So you have to kind of do this little 2-step to get it freed up again. So now this can kind of come up, and this should be plenty out of the way now. The spacer, I got this one to finally behave by kind of locking it in this position on this loop here. So I'm gonna use that for a while and see how I like it. Moving to the saddle now. I use, and I don't remember if I gave these a name, but these are like kind of like pigtails with a, I think this is called a Matthew Walker knot, and they wrap through here. It's a type of hitch. I haven't seen it anywhere else, but it's a really sturdy knot, real stable. It's once it's tight, it's a real work to get it to loosen up. But this part here, when I tend my tethers, gives a nice surface here for this to for these to tend like that. So that's that. Get this out of sight here. As far as the saddle now, it's just 2 of the latest versions of the saddle, and it looks like a mess. I guess it looks a little bit like a mess to put on. It's really not. You open it up, you step into it, you grab the upper one, you pull this up. Pull this up is almost like a back band, but it's much wider. It's much wider than a back band. And then you get it in place, and you just slide these friction hitches up, get it in place where you want it, and then the lower you would adjust the same way to your size. Same thing, you pull these up, put this thing on, but for my walk in, I would leave it a little loose, and it doesn't, you hardly notice it's on there. And it's raining today pretty good, but next time I get a nice day, I'll take this out and do a climb with it, do a demonstration. What else? I had tried to make the stirrup lines the same length. I had tried to make that work as the same length line, but it really doesn't. So what you have to have is whichever one you choose to be your upper would be. Right now what I do is I set it so that when my foot's in it, this knot is about nipple high, and then on the lower, with my foot in the stirrup, or I should say this hitch, not this hitch, I'm calling this a trigger hitch. It's a modified Blake's, but and then you loosen it up like that, it locks up pretty tight when you get your weight in it. And if you've seen some of the other videos where I demonstrated that, you can see what's going on. But you'd pull on that, maybe push that in, and it frees right up. But once you set it, it stays where you put it until you want it to move. But the lower stirrup I have, when your foot's in the stirrup, I'll have this hitch about waist height, and that so far, or maybe a little bit lower than waist height, and that gives a really good rate of climb. I think real intuitive and smooth, especially now I got the heat shrink back on, where the rope is stiff enough. Even on a bigger tree, I'll pull this out. See, just take a look here. Even on a bigger tree, I'd have this pulled out, and that can just slide right up. And if you're worried about these slipping, they never do. I've never had these slip on me. So having this plastic on here, it's a replaceable, everything's replaceable on this. But anyway, that's it. That's the changes for now. So good hunting, and until next time, thanks for stopping by.